introductory video on unique ID generator in a distributed system. So before diving deep into this discussion of unique ID generator, let's see what is a unique ID or what does it represent. So unique ID in a database is basically a value assigned to a record. In database, this is a value which is assigned to a record to distinguish between all the other records which are present in a database. So to explain in a little bit of details, so basically a database consists of a table in general scenarios. So suppose let me consider a table which has 3 columns. This is the ID, this is let's say name, and this is age. So for suppose first I have name ABC, age is 25, second DEF, let's say 26, third ABC, again let's say 28. So suppose two persons have the same name. So here our unique ID is this. Since all the values of each individual record which we mentioned just, so this each individual row is an individual record which we insert into a table. So the values of each individual row, the ID values in each individual row is different, and this helps us to later query any information about that person or anything related to that person or any other information. So this is basically a unique ID which we use in a database to distinguish between the two records. So I'll just distinguish. So this is a main feature of a unique ID, distinguish between two records such that no two records have same value. So this is an overall unique ID in a high level which we can understand what is unique ID. So now for this unique ID, why do we generally need a generator? If you are familiar with a MySQL database, what we use in a MySQL command is like we use a primary key who has a characteristic of similar to a unique ID. Along with that, we use an auto increment feature. So basically auto increment, what it does is like suppose I have entries till 1, 2, 3 and all the information related to it, and whenever a new entry has come, so it automatically increases this value to 4 and inserts this entry with corresponding 4 as the ID for that particular row. So this is an auto increment feature in MySQL, and this is a primary key. The unique ID is basically a primary key, so it has a non-null value and the values are distinct. So but it seems this auto increment doesn't work well in a distributed environment. Because why? It doesn't work well. It doesn't work well in distributed systems or distributed environment. Why this is so? This is because number one, in a distributed environment we have more than single database server. So to handle a large value of primary key with this auto increment feature, that is not very much feasible in a real world scenario, since single database server cannot hold large data entries. So using primary key with the auto increment feature, this does not become a feasible option in a real world scenario. Another thing is like generating this multiple IDs in multiple databases, it incurs a high latency. Number one, we also need synchronization among the databases so that there are no duplicate primary keys for a particular entry in both the databases, or there are no duplicate unique IDs for two different values in the databases in multiple data centers. So we need to synchronize also. So for this, we use various different methods to generate unique ID in a distributed environment. So now before diving into the various methods which we use in designing a unique ID, a thing which we can do in an interview is like we can ask the interviewer what are his requirements or what are the particular requirement for this interview, like what should be the characteristics of my unique ID. So like some of the few questions which we could ask the interviewer is like, what should be the first question is like, what can be the characteristic of the unique ID. So like it should be, let's say, unique ID should be sortable and unique. This is one thing. Next is like, should it follow the auto increment feature, like it should always increase by 1, or is there any other parameter by which the unique ID should increment its value? So it seems like we can use another feature like using timestamp to increment the unique ID's value. So for each record, use timestamp to increment unique ID's value. So next is like, should the unique ID be numerical or should it be a string, or is it a mixture of both, like it can have both string values and a numerical value? So let's say suppose we use IDs are numerical in our case. What should be the length of the ID, like is it something large ID it should be, or something of minimal bit or something like that? So if for our use case it can be like, let's say it's 64 bit. And another thing is like in distributed systems it should be highly scalable. So like highly scalable means, suppose let's say it can produce 10,000 IDs per second. So these are some of the interactions which we can have with the interviewer in an interview setup to get an idea of how we should design our unique ID generator. And next we can move forward with the design which is favorable as per our requirements. So in the next video we will look into some of the unique ID generator programs or some of the unique ID generator approaches which we can use in our real world scenario. So let's look into those in the next video. So thank you for watching this video. See you in the next video.